Welcome to another edition of Heavy Live with Scoop B. I am Brandon Scoop B. Robinson, senior writer at Heavy.com and the host of the Scoop B Radio podcast. Today is the day, 7 o'clock on the dot Eastern time, which would be about what? 4 o'clock Pacific time, 6 o'clock out Central time. And I'm excited because today we have one of my favorite gospel recording artists on Heavy Live with Scoop B. It's none other than Kirk Franklin. Kirk, welcome to Heavy Live with Scoop B.
Brother, how you doing, man? I'm glad to be here.
Man, I am blessed. How are you and your family?
You know, man, we're hanging in there like everybody else, really just fighting to stay encouraged and reminded that tough times don't last long, but tough people do. And so we're doing all that we can to live in that faith and that truth.
This is true, man. COVID and just bored in the house and in the house bored, as well as just figuring out whatever that new normal. Faith is so important. What is one verse that you've been leaning on during COVID-19?
Man, well, there's a couple. There's one in Isaiah that talks about, I am the Lord thy God who holds your right hand. And I say to you, do not be afraid. I will help you. And then, of course, Romans 8:28 is always the OG verse, for we know that all things are working together for the good of them that love the Lord and to them that are called according to his purpose. So, that's always the, that's the hook and sink joint right there. You know what I mean? That they just remind you of the big divine picture of life and the things that life can throw at you.
For sure. Kirk Franklin here at Heavy Live with Scoop B. Here, actually, a birdie told me that the 14th annual McDonald's Inspiration Celebration Gospel Tour. 14 years, number one, is crazy. Time is flying. But number two, you are part of the digital concert that is giving tribute to Chicago, Atlanta, as well as a myriad of other places. And you're on that bill, October 18th, along with Fred Hammond, Myron Butler, and Marvin Sapp. How cool is that?
No, man, it's super dope. Unfortunately, so many outlets have had to go virtual and to try to figure out a new way of just communicating and giving hope and entertaining. And so that's what's happening this year. And so I'm honored to be part of the Dallas performance and to be able to do what it is that I can do to be able to inspire people and encourage people and to bring people music and to remind them of how dope Jesus is in the midst of all of this craziness. And it's coming on the 18th.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so we'll be rocking the Dallas segment of the concert. And man, I think there's going to be something that's going to be worth people's time.
I know that you and Fred Hammond did the verses. I think that was in the summertime.
Mm-hmm.
For me, most times when you look at hip hop, for example, you got regions. You have Chicago regions. You have Atlanta regions. You have New York regions. When you look at you and Fred Hammond, to me, you're my childhood. So you're on the screen right now. But when you look at Fred Hammond and you look at you, like, why is it that you guys were at the top of your game and still are, but you guys never put out a joint album?
Is I think that what the consumers in our world feed for are not always the cool, creative, curated moments that sometimes translate well and other platforms or other genres. I think that when people come to gospel music, they're mainly coming to gospel music not to hear the production, not to hear the 808s, not to hear the beats, and not to necessarily, be able to check out the metaphors, you know what I mean? Or the nice wordplay like they do in other genres. They kind of fuel that type of musical relationships like collab albums and different type of smash ups. I think that when people come to gospel music, the gospel music is not personality driven as much as it is about the message. That's why songs in gospel music can live longer than the individual that did the song. It's because when people found a song that they were maybe inspired by when their mama died, or when their daddy got sick of cancer, or their boy went to prison, and these were songs that they lived and held their lives by. So it's not about who did them. That's why, like in gospel music, you can go to somebody's church, and let's say that let's say that church has a guy that goes to that church that can really blow, and he sings never would have made it. Let's say he kills never would have made it. That doesn't mean that the people are going to leave church that day and buy never would have made it. For them, that fed their appetite for that song. Where in mainstream music, if you go to like an outside park, and if a dude is up there doing Drake bars, you're going to go, why is he rapping Drake? You know what I'm saying? Like you you don't go, oh man, he fresh like Drake, or he could spit. You know, it's like, why is he doing that?
Right.
Because other music is more personality driven.
Sure.
And so, yeah, does that kind of make sense what I'm saying?
No,
so then it limits. Yeah. So then it limits a lot of times, a lot of creative moments that could be really dope and could be positive things, because the consumers don't come here for the same appetite that they do other forms of music.
Sure. And I think that comes at an interesting point, because when Kirk Franklin and the family dropped the first album, the reason why I sing, I think there was one album before Kirk Franklin and the family, correct?
No. That was the first album.
The first album
that was the first album. While We Sing was the first album.
But when I look at the point in which you came in, Sister Act 2 came out with Whoopi Goldberg. So you had people singing Joyful, Joyful in church on stage. Hezekiah Walker was making his run. When I look at just where you fit in that genre, you were the juxtaposition between hip hop, because you heard some references that drew people in to the message. When you came into your own with God's Property and with the family, etc., you were criticized a lot because you were kind of like one of the first. You meshed in what is now normal. When you look at the Kingdom Come soundtrack, you and Mary Mary was another group that kind of meshed that. How do you maintain your faith, your integrity, while also drawing in people who may not have even heard of the word?
Well, one thing that is very true of just about the DNA of hip hop can be the same for those that do Christian and gospel music, meaning that if you work at Wells Fargo and you do a gangster rap album about gangbanging, the fans are not going to believe it. And so they're not going to support it. They want to know that if you are gangbanger, or if you tripping, if you crip or if you blood, then that's really your lifestyle. And if it's not your lifestyle, they won't subscribe to your music.
Sure.
Same thing about gospel music is that people want to believe that the oracle that is articulating songs of faith is really representative of something that they intrinsically believe in. Sure. And so for me, it's got to not only be something that you do, it definitely has to be who you are. That the message that we do in this space has to be a outward testimony of who we are internally as men and women of faith, far from perfect, battered, bruised, fragile human beings, but we are very intentional about realizing that we are broken beings.
We all fall short, but we are, like you said, we are imperfect beings. I come from a basketball background, and I give you the scene. Coming home from church, watching NBC4, the NBA on NBC. The Seattle Supersonics are playing. Gary Payton drives to the basket. I hear the public address announcer yell after he scores, "GP, are you with me?" When I saw that moment on TV, I said, gospel music made it. Two-part question. Did you ever catch a Seattle Supersonics game when the public address announcer yelled, "GP, are you with me?" And when did you know that gospel music had a chance to cross over while still keeping the message pure?
I think that it's been all a blur for me. I think that there's been so much to keep up with and so much to maintain, whether it comes to character, integrity, trying to become a stronger man, a stronger father, a stronger husband, to really be intentional about my faith. Those things take time. And
Mhm.
I think that if you that you can get lost in the nuances of what is happening around you, that a lot of times what is happening around you becomes more important than you. And it is very important to do the music, but wear it like a jacket, something that you can take off. Never let it be your identity. And so those things are humbling, I'm quite sure. And I know for a fact that when I was younger and those things were happening, that yeah, there was a lot where you got consumed, but those things were not beneficial for me. It was not beneficial for my faith. I think that that at the core, gospel music does not include the same type of genetics that other artists and other art forms have. For example, if you are a young R&B singer and you are rehearsing in the mirror and you want to grow up and be a star, you're like, when I grow up and be like Jackson, grow up and be a star, it's acceptable. That's something that is nurtured, something trained. But when you're a young kid growing up in church, to even have an ideal mindset that you're going to grow up to be a star is very. It is it 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 is not necessarily the organic response. It's almost duplicitous when it comes
Sure.
to uh, the yeah. To say that you're going to be a star in gospel music is that's a that's a conundrum. Should you say? And so when you grow up as a gospel artist and then some of those things are now becoming part of your life, you don't necessarily know how to maneuver through that. You don't necessarily know how to even be able to address some of those things because your genre of music doesn't really equip you to be able to know what that is, nor are the tenets of your faith necessarily subscribable to that type of ideal.
How did you get introduced to writing songs and playing the piano? Was there a specific person or mentor?
Well, I started taking piano lessons at the age of 4 from a lady by the name of Miss Jackson, and she lived around in the block. She was not far from the crib, and I started playing in church. I started playing in churches, and but what really influenced me was music on the radio. I was more influenced by the R&B music being played on the radio. Songs are being played on the radio. That's what influenced me. That's what motivated me. That's was the stuff that I was really engaged in, and so those are the songs I would play. I would play those songs, and then when I had friends around or when I was in different environments, I would jump on the piano and play more of the popular songs. And that gave me popularity with the girls. I was into the girls. I went to girls. And so I would do all of the, hot little current songs that were being played, the Michael Jackson songs, the Prince songs. And it wasn't until around about 15, 16 when a friend of mine got shot and killed that faith really became a very a very urgent part of my life. And then that's when things in my heart and in the compass of my soul changed, where a lot of the songwriting now became very vertical.
Mhm.
And so that was the genesis of my journey.
What artist made you believe in yourself to want to share your music and creativity?
I don't know if there was one that certain artist made me believe in myself. I was a fan of several different artists. I mean, I was a fan of music. I did music, and so doing music made me a fan of everything that I was doing. But no, there was not one particular person.
Which segues into my next question. Can you name three of your favorite singers of any genre?
Three of my favorite singers of any genre. Um, I'm a Pavarotti fan. I think that Whitney in her prime was a voice that was undeniable, comparable. Uh, and I think that see one more genre. What is another genre? James Taylor. Is I think that James Taylor's voice was very unique, even though he was singer, songwriter, storyteller. Is I think that his voice is really dope.
Kirk, help me understand something. We're home. Everybody's looking at everything on social media. And even before COVID-19 hit, uh, Kanye West's Sunday service has been the social media buzz. It's hated, it's loved at the same time. The Bible calls you to love. The Bible, in different terms, tells you to understand What do you make of Sunday service? Have you been to Sunday service?
Yeah, I have been honored to have moments where is I've been blessed to do life with Kanye, and as I think that Sunday service and his engagement is, I think, been very therapeutic for him. I think that it's been a very powerful moment in his life, and I think that that's what gospel music is for anybody. Is I think that everybody should find themselves a Sunday service. Yeah, as I was a part of the Sunday service when Kobe died, when I was in LA and he asked me to come out, and so yes, I was a part of that one. But yeah, is I think that anytime a community of people get together and want to talk about the bigness and the greatness of God,
Mhm.
that's dope.
When you look at Kanye West, I think he's a musical genius. Is it too early? In basketball, people rank Michael, Kobe, LeBron. When you look at his musical talent, just straight talent, where do you place him?
That is a phenomenal talent. Him, Pharrell, I think Timbaland's a great talent.
Mhm.
Is I think that there have been some phenomenal talents. I think Jay is a great talent. Uh, is I think there have been many great talents. Lauren Hill's a great talent. Wyclef's a great talent. Um, I mean, but Michael and Prince are great talents. There have been, Max Martin is a talented producer. I mean, I think that there's some really, really great talented people that in this medium, and they all should be celebrated. Is I think that music is a very powerful medium, and that the microphone can be weaponized, or it can be a healing balm.
Mhm. I agree. Sunday Best on BET is a show that gets people together. Which contestant did you and the judges like the most? A lot, or I guess who did you guys reach a consensus on which one you liked the best and why?
It's just a process, and the judges are able to freely choose who they want and decide to be, and that's their role. And my job is to try to navigate whatever decision that they make. And so I'm just grateful that for 10 seasons, people have tuned in. That is very humbling to know that for over 10 years, the show has been part of the lexicon of people's spiritual journey as well. And so I'm very thankful for that.
In hip hop, people call DJ Khaled the Kirk Franklin of hip hop. And in gospel music, people have always talked about the fact that you haven't been able to sing, but that's not true because you sang in a couple of songs. Have you heard that in your world, and what do you say to that?
Whether it's DJ Khaled applies, whatever it is, I think it's funny. It's all funny. It's all funny. It's funny.
Applies to me on social media is funny, and I think that you guys go back and forth, has been pretty funny. Um, I guess for you, when you talk about gospel music and when you talk about the secular music or just hip hop at large, however people want to place it, why do people get so funny, particularly old heads and gospel music about dark and light, and how do you maintain that? Because I think social media is a great way to put out the message, but at the same time, everybody's going to be a critic. How do you find that balance?
Is I just think that you understand what it is, and it's something that you do. It's not something that you are. And I think it takes a lot of work to remain and remember your identity, your true identity, and that's what makes a strong faith in Christ very important to that process. Is because religion can reinforce thoughts and ideals that are not always beneficial for your spiritual development or growth or your true essence of who you are as a human being or a child of God. And so that's what I fight to do. It can be a very toxic place. It can be a place that can be used for good or for bad. And I think that throughout millennia, we have seen many different tools that in different moments in history, they were good tools. We've seen the Bible weaponized at times, but it does not mean that they're not encouraging powerful tenets in there to be able to help man become a better uh, individual and a better creation. So it's all about the heart of the matter. Like the heart of the matter will always be the heart of the matter.
Can you name two albums that you've done? A few more questions that you did that if you had the opportunity as a perfectionist and as a musician to do over, you maybe later you're like, man, I should have done this, I should have done that. What are two albums that you could wish that you could have done over if you could?
That I could have done over
Or added pieces?
that were my albums.
Yes.
Um, is I don't know albums that I could have done over. Is I wish that God would have been nice enough to let me have Jesus Walks. As I think that's a banging song, and I think that's a smash. Then so it's like that's a joint. I wish that maybe that I could have originally had the track, the Benjamin's track, all about the Benjamin's track. I would have taken that and done something with that, like Revolution. I don't know, or keep the vibrant thing track, boom, 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 boom.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So there are joints that you hear, kind of in your journey, like, But outside of that, man, I'm grateful for what God has let me borrow.
For sure. Your McDonald's Inspiration Celebration Gospel Tour, um, doing it digital with all of these different accomplished artists. You look at church and everybody doing virtual church because of COVID. What is something, I guess it goes back into what I was saying about the old and the new school. When you look at digital church, streaming, and all that other stuff, nobody thought that folks would be stuck at home hearing the gospel. What is something for you that you as a person have learned while being home?
That it's not about me. That all of the selfish things that we naturally pull on as human beings, as selfish beings, that God loves me, but He don't need me, and God wants my life to exist for Him and Him and His glory. That is not about me. God did not give us His Son, and His Son down the cross for me to be a celebrity or for me to be a star. He gave His Son for me to be a servant. I am to serve my wife. I am to serve my children. I am to serve mankind. It's not about me. God first, family second, and others next. Myself last.
How have you adjusted to having kids in college?
It's work. It's work. I miss my babies. I was just FaceTiming my daughter. I was just FaceTiming my daughter when you hit me. Matter of fact, I'm in the studio working on music right now, and I just FaceTime before you call. And I just miss my babies. I miss my babies.
So you said you're in the studio working on music. Is there a forthcoming? What's new music, new projects? What's next?
I ain't giving you all that. I ain't giving you all that. We talking about McDonald's. You just nosy. Just one more thing. What's your last question? What's your last question, Bishop?
My last.
Man, the
I
man
don't
of
know.
God.
I just want to be honest with you, man. It's an honor to sit and talk with you. You, for me, I appreciate your ministry because you were unashamed to preach the gospel in a world that is about me, me, me. And I think that you made it cool to be the weird, cool kid. You were like the Russell Westbrook of gospel.
That's dope. Thank
And
you. But that's very humbling.
yeah,
That's very humbling.
yeah. So
That's very humbling.
I think I remember as a kid doing radio and having a started radio at 12 years old with a professional NBA team. And I remember bringing the God's Property album to the studio and wanted to use that. And they were like, they weren't hip to it yet. They were like, we can't use this because it's mainstream radio, but it's gospel. And over time, I've seen how gospel has been infused in other things, whether it was the Any Given Sunday soundtrack. When you saw Kingdom Come, and there were people who saw that movie. So I feel like what you've done was ahead of the curve. You were a couple of M&Ms in a bowl of Skittles.
Well, thank you, brother. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you. It's very humbling, and I wish you the most success on your endeavors, man. It's just thank you for having me, and I'm very grateful to be part of just a great community of great men and women. So thank you so much,
Sir, Lakers are winning tomorrow, right?
Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Nah, they're up 3-1. They may close
Of
the
course,
series tomorrow. So I figured you might have watched.
my man.
Yes, sir. I'll talk to you soon.
I've been I've been in the studio day and night, man. But it was an honor meeting you, man. Thank you so much.
Pleasure, sir. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, sir. It was an honor. It was
Yes,
an
sir.
honor. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Kirk Franklin, ladies and gentlemen, Heavy Live with Scoop B.